Peter Mandelson being forced to resign as UK ambassador to the US over his close links to the serial paedophile Jeffrey Epstein should be regarded as a political and media scandal. It exposes a politically and morally bankrupt government and a media which, let's be honest, just too often protects the powerful while punching down on those who don't have power. But it really underlines a very obvious fact, and that is, I'm not afraid to say, Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, is doomed. That man is kaput. Finito. He's the Walking Dead, politically speaking, that is. A zombie Prime Minister flailing around, frankly, in an increasingly degrading and humiliating fashion. Keir Starmer appointed Lord Mandelson as ambassador to the US when it was absolutely clear that that guy had a close relationship to this prolific sex offender who he described as his best pal in leaked messages. Epstein, by the way, do get a sick bag at any point, called him PT. Now, these two clearly went back a long way. Let's just have a look at the 2003 birthday messages from Mandelson to Epstein, who had hundreds of victims. And this really is one example, isn't it, of this sordid relationship. And this really is a sordid relationship between the political elite and a wealthy elite, up to and including, in this case, a serial paedophile. So you get these birthday messages in a birthday book, and in it, Peter Mandelson has scrawled various captions like, "Once upon a time, an intelligent, sharp-witted man they call mysterious parachuted into my life." Anyone who's met Peter Mandelson will, I think, I have met him, I think be au fait with his style, which is somewhere between charming in a certain way and extremely weird, odd, unsettling. Now, there's an image of Peter Mandelson shirtless with a caption, "You would spend many hours just waiting for him to turn up." Then a picture of a man in a small boat with the words, "And often, no sooner were you getting used to having him around, you would suddenly be alone again." Odd way to communicate. And then this next message, "Leaving you with some interesting," that's in quotes, "friends to entertain instead, ... He should be asked to explain what that means. What does he mean by, why does he put interesting in quotes? The question is, how much did this guy know? Because Jeffrey Epstein was prolific. So the obvious questions there are, given how prolific Jeffrey Epstein was and the role of his various associates, who are the interesting friends Peter Mandelson is talking about? It's not unreasonable to get that one answered, is it? Then, or just some dogs to keep you company. He wasn't always so keen on them. Beside an image of two dogs and a woman with her face hidden. There's another page with an image of an Epstein home on presumably his private Caribbean island with a scribbled caption referring to one of his glorious homes he likes to share with his friends. And then in brackets, yum yum. Difficult not to feel a little bit nauseous given everything we know. I mean, we don't know what that means. We don't know what he means by his friends yum yum. His glorious homes he likes to share. We know in those homes that he committed, Epstein, very serious, vile sexual offences. That's what we do know. So anyone now reading these messages, and this is before, by the way, 2003, Epstein was convicted, but when he was engaged in this behaviour, what is Peter Mandelson talking about? I mean, he's been forced out now. He's been forced to resign as ambassador. But that doesn't mean he shouldn't be scrutinised anymore. We need to know what he knew, exactly what he knew, and what those around Keir Starmer also knew about this. There's a picture of Peter Mandelson in a robe, giggling away with Epstein with the caption, but wherever he is in the world, he remains my best pal. His best pal. Not really much room for interpretation, is there? You know, before he's like, "I regret this association, 20 years ago, having met Jeffrey Epstein through Giselle Maxwell." Best pal. It's not the sort of expression people just throw around like confetti, is it? Normally people use that when they're talking about their best friend. The clue's in the words. These birthday messages ends with, "Happy birthday, Jeffrey. We love you." With a picture of Mandelson in a boat with someone else. "We love you. We love you." Well. In 2005, Peter Mandelson emailed him, "When are you going to the island at Christmas? What are your plans and how do I fit into them? Kiss." Obviously very close. You don't email someone to ask what they're doing at Christmas, what their plans are, and asking if they will involve that person with their Christmas plans at their private island. I mean, that is a particular type of closeness. I think we can all accept. So Peter Mandelson has to be this very, very close friend who spends time on an island where we know terrible things happened. He didn't even hear any rumors. Didn't hear any suspicions. It didn't have it and didn't ever see anything or hear anything that caused him to think, hold on a minute. Why am I best pals with Jeffrey Epstein? I mean, the guy's had to resign. In October 2006, he told Epstein he faced a terrible situation in his personal life and also said, "Please stick with me through this." What's that all about? Again, he needs to answer that. What's he talking about? I mean, look, if it's, you can't just force people to divulge what's going on in their personal life unless it's, something untoward, and we don't have anything else to go on in this message other than terrible situation. But, please stick with me through this. What's that referring to? That sounds like, it makes it sound like some sort of scandal, though there's no public record of any scandal at that particular time. Peter Mandelson previously did have to resign from the Labour government twice. He had to be forced out the government twice, which also, we'll come on to that, but obviously should have been red flags. Obviously, what did for Mandelson's career were emails from June 2008 when Epstein was facing prosecution for procuring a child for prostitution. Mandelson says, "I think the world of you and I feel hopeless and furious about what's happened. I can still barely understand it. It just could not happen in Britain." What does he mean by this? I mean, as it turns out, that's the tip of the iceberg, that particular prosecution. "I think the world of you and I feel hopeless and furious." And then he says, "You have to be incredibly resilient, fight for early release and be philosophical about it." He talks about, coming back stronger. I mean, imagine being close friends to someone who's being prosecuted for procuring a child for prostitution and writing in these ways. In another message, says, "Your friends stay with you and love you." And even a strategy note, reminder, "You are fighting back, so you need strategy, strategy, strategy. Remember the art of war." Weird. But again, so he doesn't believe the charges against Jeffrey Epstein back in 2008. What, on the grounds that everything he knows about Jeffrey Epstein, who he calls his best pal, contradicts any sense of how those charges could be based on something? He's like, "Oh no, of all my friends, Jeffrey Epstein, he couldn't possibly have done what he's accused of. Not Jeffrey Epstein." Is it really possible to honestly, come on now. Best pal goes on holiday with him, request to hang out with him at Christmas, messages with kisses at the end, and what he knows about Jeffrey Epstein makes him think that this particular charge in 2008, having known him for years, must be a monstrous falsehood against his good friend. Now, other revelations found that Epstein brokered a deal with Lord Mandelson over the sale of a UK taxpayer-owned banking business after he'd been convicted of child sex offences. So, I mean, that's the point. Mandelson continued that friendship, despite the fact he'd been convicted. So where's he out there? He's like, well, not only has he been charged, he's been convicted, but I couldn't possibly believe this is true. It's Jeffrey, not Jeffrey. Look, let's be clear here. It was always known that Peter Mandelson was close to Jeffrey Epstein, but the media almost never questioned him about it. Why? For what reason? I would say it's because they saw Peter Mandelson as a revered establishment politician, and this would be somehow gutter questioning. If this was, say, a left-wing politician, they would never have done this. That person would be crucified over it. Now, we don't know. We just don't know, actually, what Peter Mandelson did actually know. We don't know. Can't prove anything. What we do know is, Jeffrey Epstein was a prolific child sex offender. And if his close friend, somebody who describes himself as his best pal, had not even an inkling and actually thought Jeffrey Epstein was being wrongly prosecuted, What about Keir Starmer, who was elected on a left-wing mandate of public ownership, hiking tax on the rich, defending the welfare state, opposing anti-migrant bashing, that kind of thing? All a lie, total lie. And the person behind it was Morgan McSweeney. That was the campaign manager. He used to run the campaign of Liz Kendall back in 2015, who was hardcore Blairite. She only got 4.5%. Morgan McSweeney went, oh, we can't win like saying what she think. Let's lie through our teeth. Let's just pretend we believe all these things. That's the only way we can dupe the Labour membership. We'll dupe them, take control, and then just do the exact opposite of all the things we promised. And that's what happened. And they embraced the most hardcore Blairites in the Labour Party, the most obnoxious Blairites, and their idol is Peter Mandelson, who then became a massively influential figure in that Labour Party. Now, when Mandelson was clearly already very influential, back in January 2024, there was a rare question about Epstein from a journalist to Starmer.
On Peter Mandelson, look, and I do try to give pretty full answers in these sessions, I don't know any more than you do. And therefore, there's not really much I can add to what you already know, I'm afraid. And, that's simply the state of the affairs.
So he just expresses ignorance as though there's nothing for him to investigate, God knows. Oh, well, let's just move on, shall we? Now, when he was appointed ambassador by Starmer last year, Labour Minister Heidi Alexander sang his praises.
I think Lord Mandelson is an individual of very significant international standing. He's been a previous EU Trade Commissioner. He's a very experienced politician. We need someone as the next ambassador to the US who is going to be able to promote our economic and security interests with one of our closest allies. And so I think he is a really good fit for the job. He is a person of incredible skill and talent.
And at Prime Minister's questions this Wednesday, Starmer said he had full confidence in Mandelson.
His deep regret for his association with him. He's right to do so. I have confidence in him, and he's playing an important role in the UK-US relationship.
This is interesting, Mr. Speaker. He says the ambassador has expressed full regret, but the victims of the paedophile Jeffrey Epstein have called for Lord Mandelson to be sacked. And just so the House is aware, in 2019, Jeffrey Epstein was convicted of child prostitution and sex trafficking that took place between 2002 and 2005. That is the precise period which Lord Mandelson called Jeffrey Epstein his best pal. Was the Prime Minister aware of this intimate relationship when he appointed Lord Mandelson to be our ambassador in Washington?
Mr. Speaker, as she and the House would expect, full due process was followed during this appointment, as it is with all ambassadors. The ambassador has repeatedly expressed his deep regret. He is right to do so. He's now playing an important part in the US-UK relationship.
Mr. Speaker, I asked the Prime Minister if he knew. The fact that he didn't answer indicates that he probably did know. I wasn't asking a question about process. I was asking a question about his judgment. The Daily Telegraph reports today that while Lord Mandelson was business secretary, he brokered a deal with Jeffrey Epstein while he was business secretary, and that this occurred after Epstein had been convicted of child sex offences. Given this new information, does the Prime Minister really think it is tenable for our ambassador to remain in post?
Mr. Speaker, the relationship between the US and the UK is one of our foremost relationships, and I have confidence in the ambassador in the role that he is doing.
Oh, it gets worse. Sky News reported that the security services expressed concern about Mandelson's appointment as ambassador, but the government went and appointed him anyway. What does this say about Starmer and his goons? Starmer's merely a frontman for the faction who run the Labour Party. Indeed, his advisers boasted in a recent book that he's a useful idiot briefing. They thought he was a train driver, but they'd sat him in front of the driverless District Light Railway. This faction have no coherent principles whatsoever. Nothing, none. They've no vision for the country, no answers to its problems. They're attracted to power for its own sake. And they hate the left. That's basically a lot with these guys. That is all that is going on in their heads and in their hearts, such as those exist. And all they can do is try and rehash a caricature of Blairism, which, whatever you think about it, has no relevance to the age in which we live. Mandelson is, as I said, their icon, their god. The man who once said New Labour was intensely relaxed about people getting filthy rich, which encapsulates why he was so drawn to the likes of Epstein in the first place. These soulless dead behind the eyes hacks are in it for themselves. Starmer's polling is beyond catastrophic. He only won the election because the Tory government had imploded, and even then, Labour only just got over a third of the vote on the lowest turnout in democratic history. His government has been a total disaster, a catastrophe. I warned people it would be a disaster, not to say I told you so, but I actually did tell you so. All it's done is, try and kick disabled people, kick elderly people at home whilst abroad facilitate genocide. Well, do you know what? Starmer's running out of luck, and soon the goons behind Starmer will turn on him and then boot him out. Tick tock. We'll see how long he lasts. But given he's less popular than the bubonic plague and has no ideas for turning it around, I don't think he will be Prime Minister for an awfully long time. Please like and subscribe. Give your thoughts and your comments. Help us take on a dire mainstream media. Patreon.com/OwenJones84. You make it all possible. Patreon.com/OwenJones84. Leave your comments as ever. Love to hear what you think. Share the video. I'll speak to you in a bit.